It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 10 of The Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the events of Season 10, Episode 20, and I'm going to try to explain what parts of that was real and what part wasn't real. Obviously, there was a lot of confusion about what was a hallucination, what was real, what was in Princess's head, and what was actually happening. So I thought it makes sense to do this video to do two things. One is to explain what actually happened in this episode, what was real, what was a hallucination, and also what piece of new information we learned based on this episode about who the Commonwealth are and how different they are than their comic counterpart. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to break this down. Alright, before we get into this, as always, if you're not a subscriber and enjoy the content by the end, consider subscribing to join our community, share and smash the like button, and press the bell to be notified when we upload. So with that said, let's dive right into it. So let's start from the very beginning. So as we saw in this episode, we picked up exactly from where Season 10 officially ended, when we had Yumiko, Princess, Eugene, and Ezekiel being surrounded by these military personnel in an all-white suit, and obviously that was all real. And the beginning of Season 10 Episode 20, where we had the Commonwealth soldiers punching the survivors and capturing them, was also most likely real. Like, Yumiko getting punched was not in Princess's mind, like it wasn't a hallucination. It probably happened. And obviously all of the survivors were captured and most likely were put in different train cars, like the one that Princess was in. The next part of this episode was Princess and Yumiko's conversation behind the wall. All of that was in Princess's mind and it was a hallucination. How do we know this? Because on the Walking Dead social media page, they confirmed this was not real. It was all in Princess's mind. So in real life, Yumiko never had a conversation with Princess. In fact, Princess never had any conversation with any of them. Yumiko, Eugene, or Ezekiel. We'll talk about all of that in a bit. The next part of this episode, which was the interrogation scene, was most likely real. Like, Princess was most likely taken to this room and was interrogated by one of the Commonwealth soldiers. Now, there is a chance that they may, at the end of the day, say that this was also a hallucination. The reason why I say that is because we are going to see the group being interrogated once again in Season 11, because they already teased it with that shot that they revealed with the two-way mirror and the cameras. That's most likely at Commonwealth, and it's when the group is interrogated, this time most likely by the leader of the Commonwealth herself, Pamela Milton. But for the sake of this video, we're gonna assume that this right here was real. Next is Princess escaping and having a conversation with Eugene. That was also a hallucination. Why I say that is, again, the Walking Dead social media page confirmed that there was no portal, like there was no opening, so there was no way that Princess could escape, which is actually more realistic and logical thinking back, because the Commonwealth soldiers would have spotted it in an instant the moment she got out and was hiding behind the other train car right after talking to Eugene. So that kind of explains why that scene went the way it did. Next is the scenes with Ezekiel, and I think this is the one that everyone got because it was part of the big reveal, but Ezekiel was never there in Princess's car. He never escaped, and there was never a conversation between Ezekiel and Princess, which again is more realistic and logical, because when the Commonwealth soldier enters the train car, there is no way that Ezekiel can get out in time. And I don't think that the train car is dark enough for the Commonwealth soldier not to see Ezekiel. So that kind of explains why Ezekiel was able to sneak attack and punch the Commonwealth soldier, because it was all a hallucination. Next is something that is related. It was never Ezekiel who was choking out and punching the Commonwealth soldier. It was, in fact, Princess, and everything that happened to her in this episode pushed her over the edge to act the way she did. The next part of it is the Commonwealth soldier and his conversation with Princess. That was almost likely real, but at the same time, I feel like parts of that conversation may also have been just in Princess's head. Like, I don't think that in reality, the Commonwealth soldier said everything that Princess thought he said. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like it. And also something else I forgot to mention is because Princess never escaped, it also explains why Princess was able, it also explains what the Commonwealth planned and how their plan came together. Because if you think about it, what really happened was they put Princess in a train car, they took her out, they interrogated her, she didn't tell them anything that they wanted to hear, so they put her back in the train car. A lot of time probably passed and it contributed to Princess losing her head a little bit, and then the Commonwealth soldier went in, and that's where he was able to break Princess and get the information that he wanted out of her. One thing I do want to say in brackets is he didn't really get any information out of Princess anyway. Like, all Princess did was tell the Commonwealth soldier Eugene, Ezekiel, and Yumiko's name. That was it. That's nothing. So the whole thing about the Commonwealth soldier pounding on the door and saying that he got what they needed was all a little BS, because they didn't really get any information out of her anyway. But that's beside the point. Now, the other part of it is, was it really in their plan to have Princess beating the guy? And I think that's up to interpretation, but I feel like that might also have been fake. Like, a part of me feels like the part with Princess beating the Commonwealth soldier was also a hallucination. But it was like a double hallucination, because first she thought Ezekiel was doing it, but then she thought she was doing it, but in reality, that wasn't it. Like, she wasn't doing anything. I could be wrong, but that would eliminate a lot of the plot holes that come up if we really dig into it and think about it. This is the picture of the Commonwealth soldier putting his helmet back on and everything. If you pay attention, there's no blood on his face, when in the actual episode, he actually had a lot of blood on his face because Princess punched him. But it looks like maybe that's not what happened. So that could be a clue. It could be nothing, but I feel like it is a subtle clue, but I could obviously be wrong. But then that takes us to the very end of this episode, which is Princess opening the door and seeing Yumiko, Ezekiel, and Eugene with hoods on their heads and surrounded by Commonwealth soldiers. That was also all real. And if you think about it, we left this episode exactly how we left season 10 episode 16, with the group being surrounded by Commonwealth soldiers. Like, if you really think about it, nothing changed. Like, we could have completely skipped this episode and it wouldn't have made a difference. But that's also beside the point. Now, the last piece of it is, what does this mean in terms of the Commonwealth storyline, and what does this tell us about them, and how are they different from the comics? I think the two pieces of information that this episode revealed to us about the Commonwealth, assuming none of this episode was a hallucination, is that one, the Commonwealth are extremely secretive, maybe even more secretive than their comic counterpart, and two, they are definitely more violent when dealing with new people before they have any idea about who they are and whether they are a threat or not. This was obviously not the case in the comics. In the comics, as hostile as the Commonwealth were, they were never as violent as they were in the TV version. But that's pretty much it. That's everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to share and smash that like button. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to join our community and press the bell to be notified when we upload. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.